What up, what up? Welcome. It is Thursday, July 2nd, a little after 6:30 p.m. We're coming with a second episode this week because the NBA has gone bonkers. If you're listening, please follow along at CJ Hoops Pod on all social media channels. Chuck, both of our teams made moves. We've got a lot to discuss. The Celtics said goodbye to longtime franchise stalwart, 10 years with the organization, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, NBA Finals MVP, 6 conference finals. I think it is important to note, coming off a second-team All-NBA appearance where he got legitimate MVP buzz, Jaylen Brown, no longer a member of your favorite team, the Boston Celtics, traded to Philadelphia for Paul George, 2 draft picks. We could get into the value of those draft picks at some point in the conversation.
Doesn't matter.
But before we do that, how you feeling?
You know, beyond those things, we traded him for cap flexibility, who actually can't be an MVP because, it's just like an empty space, which is kind of just, I felt that empty hole in my heart. My heart dropped when I saw this. And it's pretty unbelievable. After 10 years, probably, I mean, even from 8 years ago, people were calling to break up the Jays.
For Paul George.
Oh, dude.
For Paul George.
Which doesn't make any fucking sense because Paul George is just an old, worse Jaylen. But we'll get more into Paul George. It's just sad after all of this time when people, and I was never in that camp of breaking them up. You finally shut everyone up, making the finals and then winning the finals 2 years later, that these two guys can coexist. And we thought we would never have to hear about this. These two guys would just coast off into the sunset, competing for championships together. And I feel like internet culture broke them up, and it's just so lame that I was talking last week. Mr. New Chronically Online, Jaylen Brown, I think that's why he's getting traded away, is because he's like, I'm going to be on Twitch streams and get in fights with people about this. And I think if he was Jokic and just partied and listened to folk, weird music and did his own thing, I don't think he would have gotten into this rift with the Celtics organization. Do you? I really think this is an online beef breakup.
Well, I guess I sort of had 2 big questions for you, and I think that you and I are in complete alignment on the first of my questions, which is, did you even have to trade Jaylen Brown in the first place? If you're given sort of those 3 options of you can trade Jaylen Brown for Giannis, you can keep Jaylen Brown, or you can shop Jaylen Brown, I'm not even sure the best of the 3 wasn't just to keep him. I think the Giannis argument is Giannis is better than Jaylen Brown. So if you're going to make a talent play, you can argue, hey, we shortened the window, but we raise our, potential to win the championship in the next year or 2. I think this, and again, tell me if I'm wrong from your point of view, I think this is by far the worst of the 3 alternatives.
The best option was to keep
better
him
next year, and you don't really, you mentioned the cap flexibility not being able to win an MVP. I don't think it can be overstated. This is 1 year of added cap flexibility. Jaylen Brown has 3 more years on his contract. Paul George has 2. This is not an expiring contract where, hey, great news, Paul George comes off the books. Paul George has a $57 million player option for next year, which at age 37, I'm going to feel pretty confident that he is going to pick up. So for the cap flexibility to amount to 1 year, I personally just so again, are we on the
We're kind of
same page?
reaching for answers.
Is this the worst of the 3 outcomes of trade for Giannis, keep Jaylen, shop Jaylen?
It's easily the worst of the 3 outcomes. The best would have been to just keep him and try to patch things up, and I thought that's where this was going. I mean, this is a guy who this year carried a pretty, unproven supporting cast through the year and showed MVP type caliber play. And to 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 leave him on this note, just we're kind of grasping for answers, like this cap flexibility, maybe that's why. But the situation just had to be super untenable. And it's similar to the Luka situation where the franchise decided we're not going to move forward with this guy. But when they shopped him, they didn't get nearly what they could for him. We could have held on to him and dealt him for more. I can't imagine we couldn't have dealt him for more now. I mean, other teams are looking around saying, and people are like, oh, like he's not a analytics darling. That's fine. I mean, look what he was on the court this year. It is head scratching, and it's the worst option, and it seems completely unnecessary, just like the Luka situation.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Jaylen Brown fan, but I think even an unbiased or partially biased NBA fan would say he is no worse than a top 12 to 15 player in the NBA. There are people that, again, with the contract, there's the argument of, well, he's one of the 9 biggest contracts in the NBA, and he's one of the 9 best players. But I don't think we're talking about a guy that's the 9th highest paid player in the NBA and the 150th best player in the NBA. That sounds more, honestly, like Paul George, because this is a contract that many viewed as completely untradeable. And there were so many conversations around the 76ers where it's, well, you're never going to be able to get off Embiid and George, so you're just sort of in purgatory until those contracts expire, and then you can start this whole new era. To turn Paul George into Jaylen Brown, we're not going to talk as much about Philly on this episode because we're going to talk more about your and my favorite teams and the implications for sort of the immediate to near term to medium term future. I was stunned. That leads us to the second question I had for you, though. And you mentioned it with there has to be something out there. Where, if you were Brad Stevens, or you were this ownership, because there's some element that this may have been an ownership decision and not purely a front office decision, what would you have prioritized when trading Jaylen Brown?
I mean, I don't know why they I don't know why they went down that avenue. It just doesn't. To go get Giannis is one thing, but to dump him for nothing, like I really liked where the Celtics were at. We're in a weak East. We have Peyton Pritchard on a small contract. We have Derek White. What I would have looked for is to kind of just add around the edges a little bit. Mitchell Robinson, great. That would have been great to just add to this and call it good. I don't even rationally know how to answer that question of like what I'm looking for in a Jaylen Brown trade. I wasn't looking for a Jaylen Brown trade. And these guys are rational guys that run the Celtics. Every move over the past, decade has really been a slow rebuild. I mean, everything since the let's get off Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce in like 2012 was building towards this. And there's been very few missteps. Taking a chance on Kyrie was a solid move. Gordon Hayward just happened to explode his shin. We were watching that together in the break room. Mm-hmm. But everything kind of had this intention, and this is just really head-scratching. This is a guy, Jaylen Brown, who I just want to give a little context, that over 10 years, we saw him go through kind of the evolution of a star in the NBA. It kind of had everything, starting from having way too much too soon with the going against the LeBron Cavs and almost making it to the finals, Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Him learning how to play in concert with Tatum, and just this slow rise. And then, I mean, he's made too many clutch shots to even talk about. I mean, during the the finals run that we had. He had that incredible in the corner double clutch to beat the Pacers in game 1. So he learned how to be this clutch player. Everyone said he can't dribble left. He learned how to dribble left. He's learned how to be a playmaker. He can defend their best player. He learned how to shoot the three. He really learned how to slow down his offensive game. And this year you could see him get to the spots that he wants, any mid-range he wants, dunking on everybody. He has incredible dunks through everybody. So he's grown his game here, and we've nurtured that growth the whole time as an organization. And now you decide to neuter all that. It just doesn't compute to me.
And you give him to one of, if not your greatest.
They just beat us.
That you're going to see in the division 4 times a year. Where do you think the Celtics rank in the East next year? What's your expectation as a fan of the team?
We got Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. We got Hugo, the darling. Paul George at the small forward spot, Jason Tatum at the 4, Mitchell Robinson and Nemi at the 5. Throw in a little Jordan Walsh, throw in a little Sam Hauser.
Shireman's there.
Shireman is still kicking. Shireman has a pulse. Let's look at the East here. You can't put them over. Detroit was number 1 in wins while they've been completely asleep at the wheel. I think they're just going to keep building.
John Collins for Tobias Harris is something.
Yeah. Playmaking is what they need. And John Collins is kind of just a kick around. Can shoot a few threes, which is nice. But, yeah, not what they need. So I'd put Cleveland ahead. I'd put the Knicks ahead. I'd put the Pistons ahead. I'd put the Kawhi Raptors ahead that we're going to talk about. I'd put the Sixers ahead. I mean, they have star power now. It's going to be Edgecombe year 2. Maxey knows exactly what he's doing leading a team by now. I mean, the Hornets are growing. Giannis is in the East now. Like, we could be playing material now, especially if Tatum, doesn't come back from an Achilles injury as full Tatum, which is totally in the cards. So maybe the Celtics saw the writing on the wall that the East was getting stronger and we want to move in a different direction, but it's just, I don't know. I don't get it.
To me, this is the first time, and I think both of our basketball watching lives, that I actually believe the Eastern Conference is better top to bottom than the West. Because while I think the top 2 teams in the NBA, I know the Knicks just won the championship, but the Thunder and the Spurs are going to walk into next season pretty clear in a class of their own as it relates to the rest of the league. I believe there are 12 teams in the East that have aspirations, and that's not the only time we're going to use aspiration on the pod today.
Nice.
I just made $500 million, which is pretty cool. Don't worry, the pod is fully sponsored now. I think there's 12 teams in the East that believe they are competing for a top 8 or at worst top 10 seed. If you look at the East, you didn't even mention Orlando, you didn't mention Atlanta. Washington does have Trae Young and Anthony Davis and just brought on AJ DeBonsa. The only 3 teams in the conference that are nowhere near the races are the Nets, Bucks, and the Bulls. Everyone else is trying to win.
Yeah, Pacers got Halliburton back, and you add your center into the mix.
Yeah. So fascinating trade. Cannot wait to see what the next evolution of Celtics basketball is. Before we move on to my team, who also made a pretty monumental trade, where I'm really going to argue that they got more for a 35-year-old Kawhi Leonard than the Celtics did for a 29-year-old Jaylen Brown. The last piece is, what interested me most about this Celtics move was the idea that they're somehow preparing for the next era of Celtics basketball, which I think is very admirable, and you want to keep your optionality open. Derek White's 32. Jason Tatum's 28. Paul George is 36. I'm not sure I really... And look, if I see one more headline about Hugo Gonzalez being untradeable, I'm going to lose my mind. Because while I think he's a really nice player, we're getting really close to Roddy Beaubois territory of, wait, he's the guy that wasn't able to bring Giannis to the Celtics? So we'll be very curious to see what the Celtics are like next season. And this is the same franchise and the same 2 teams, for that matter, that made the controversial Sixers trading up to the number 1 pick to select Markelle Fultz. and the Celtics getting Jason Tatum and a draft pick out of it. And everyone pilloried the Celtics for trading out of the number 1 pick and trading. Maybe Brad has 4D chessed the Sixers once again. But as we stand on July 2nd, I think there's a lot of questions about the Celtics, and I cannot wait to see them answered going into the next season.
Yeah, I would love to hear Brad Stevens' thought process, the Celtics' thought process.
Last
two
thing
total
before
asides. Hold
Yeah,
on, two total asides. Pilloried, great word. I hope it means what you think it does. And who was Roddy Beaubois not traded for?
That was the Mavs in 2000. I think that might have been like Chris Paul, Darren Williams. Like the
Okay.
Mavs wanted to get a guard to bring in with Dirk, and they're like, we can't bring in a guard. We already have Roddy Beaubois here.
Nice. Okay, cool.
I wanted to, last thing on this, Celtics Sixers is the most obvious Christmas Day game on the calendar now, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jaylen Brown was saying, and I can't wait to listen. I haven't watched one Twitch stream. I watched like the 5-second, aggregated stuff. But I'm very curious what he's saying post trade. He's someone who's obviously speaking his mind very clearly and without filter, which I think has kind of gotten him into this whole mess in the first place. Yeah, Sixers Celtics is going to be a good one, no matter what happens.
By the way, Chuck, pilloried. To pilloried is to subject someone to severe public criticism, scorn, or ridicule.
Nice.
Used correctly.
You're right on.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I was talking about it with our producer, Sean, today. I had to guess right now, Christmas Day, Celtics, 76ers, Thunder, Spurs, Knicks, Pacers, Lakers, Nuggets, wherever LeBron James goes against Anthony Edwards. How's that sound? I think it's a pretty good Christmas Day slate.
NBA is crazy.
It's a good spot, man.
This
NBA,
has been this league free agency and trade season.
Let's go. We got more of this league stuff to go through. So your team made a trade. My team made a trade. Clippers trade Kawhi Leonard after 7 painful years and 3 whole playoff series victories to the Toronto Raptors for Brandon Ingram, Gradey Dick, 2 first-round picks, a pick swap, and 2 second-round picks. I'm thrilled to announce to our audience those picks are in 2031 and 2033. This is fantastic. I expect the Raptors to be good the next couple of years. I don't expect the Raptors to be good at the start of the next decade. Chuck, I know this is my team, but I'm curious for your feedback before I sort of give my take. What'd you think of the Kawhi to Toronto again news?
Yeah, I mean, we traded Jaylen Brown for cap flexibility, and you traded Kawhi for a legitimate swing in Brandon Ingram. Gradey Dick, maybe he's a guy. And then picks that are actually worth something. So kudos, dude. The Clippers teardown is, you start with a new stadium and you think that they wouldn't have the balls to tear down their team. But here you go. I mean, wheeling and dealing, and things are looking pretty good for you. Maybe not this year, but
I think the most interesting part of, because look, as much as it's fun today on July 2nd to make fun of the Celtics and not make fun of the Clippers don't own their draft pick until 2030, whereas the Celtics own all of their draft picks except for one 2028 swap with San Antonio, but now have a surplus of picks going forward. What I think is the best part of what the Clippers have done here is when you say tear down, there's different ways to tear down a basketball team. And so if you look at all of the moves, if you look at Harden, Kawhi, and Zubac, they not only brought back draft picks, they brought back, and you mentioned it in terms of actual basketball players, with Garland, Ingram, Mathurin, Gradey Dick. These are former lottery picks. Garland on his second team, Gradey Dick on his second team, Ingram on his third or fourth. But guys that have at least, in Ingram and Garland's case, produced, or in Gradey Dick or Mathurin's case, have shown the potential and maybe with expanded opportunity can produce. So for the Clippers, and now there's a report that John Collins is going to be a sign and trade to Detroit. Maybe there's a chance the Clippers can get Ron Holland back in that trade. I'm totally fine right now with, I was looking at the West. I had mentioned it. We did the Celtics breakdown. I think the East is better than the West. I'm not even really sure the Clippers might be that much worse next year than they were this past year. They could maybe win 40 to 42 games, 38 to 42, somewhere in that range. I think a starting five of Garland, I would like to see Keaton Vogler, but I expect Ty Lue to start Chris Dunn. Garland, Chris Dunn, Ingram, Derrick Jones, Brook Lopez. Give some of the young guys a chance to expand their games. Maybe the Clippers play well enough to where some team that's closer to title contention wants a guy like a Derrick Jones to try and take him over the line. So, look, with the Kawhi thing, there was a ton of reporting the Clippers did not want to offer him any sort of extension. I applaud the organization for finally recognizing the fact that this was not a championship team and the window had closed probably in 2021 and that we were just sort of holding on for the sake of holding on for the past couple of years. So I think you mentioned it. I think the franchise is in a far better spot. Still a long way to go, but hopefully showing some patience and giving young players an opportunity, maintaining their flexibility. There was a segment of Clippers Twitter that's like, why didn't we just offer 4 first-round picks to the Celtics and take Jaylen Brown?
Yeah.
And again, I think that's showing growth in the Clippers front office of, it doesn't make sense to chase the 7 seed. Maybe we're the 10 seed, but let's at least be the 10, 11 seed, grow, figure out what we have, and then build up, versus trying to go from we don't have a chance to we're going to try and beat these Goliaths in the West, which we're going to talk about another team in LA that I felt sort of took that other path and tried to immediately jump the gun and compete with San Antonio and Oklahoma City. And I would far rather have the Clippers' optionality going forward than sort of had gone all in to maybe win 48 games.
Yeah, it is impressive. Just to tear down in a way that sets you up not for like total despair and just have nothing like you're the Brooklyn Nets, but actually have a path forward. You have some big swing guys, some high ceiling guys, and then like you have a great draft pick that was a coin flip that you won with Vogler. You have a guy named Baba Miller who's shown as the second string. Okay.
Oh, the Clippers don't really have a power forward right now. There's,
I see that. Nick Martinelli.
There's conversations around, will they make a run at Peyton Watson? That certainly could happen. They have the flexibility to be able to do that. We'll see. I think the team is right now in a very early stages, path in their development. So they're not we'll certainly be talking more about the Celtics as it relates to title contention this year. I don't expect the Clippers to be anywhere near that. But again, the one thing I will say, and this is going to be a little dorky Clippers, there are a lot of similarities here to the 2018 team, which if you ask a lot of Clippers fans are one of their favorite teams. That was a team that had Patrick Beverley, Avery Bradley, Gallinari, Tobias Harris, and Marcin Gortat. Yeah. And sort of the idea of that had a rookie or Shea, that had a young Zubac, that had a young Terrence Mann. This idea of like, we're going to be good enough to put a competent product on the floor, and we're also going to let Shea start and make some mistakes. And look, the Shea thing, that's gone. We're not going to, relitigate that for the millionth time. But this, I think, gives Clippers fans some excitement of, they're not going to be the best team in the West, but your point, they have a competent product. They have Garland and Ingram have made all-star teams recently. They have some solid veterans. They have some young players. We'll see what happens.
Bro, I mean, you got off a 36-year-old Harden who is obviously just getting toasted by anyone with any offensive competence in the league, both team-wise and just player vs. player, clear out everybody, let me just cook this man. And then you got off Kawhi, who's the least reliable star of all time, and you got actual assets back for these old, aging, unreliable stars. It was a great swing on these guys that just didn't work out. 3 playoff series wins, like you said, is pretty insane considering how many they could have had. And there were titles that could have been had, and just they couldn't stay on the court. Paul George couldn't stay on the court. All this stuff, and to be able to not go Brooklyn Nets mode of just like the whole franchise is done for years, to be able to reload this quickly with competence. Good for you.
Thanks, man. So we're going to come back after the holiday, and we have a lot more to discuss. We're going to do a whole breakdown on the Lakers. We had John Morant go to the Trailblazers. This is the NBA, hashtag this league. I'm sure a lot more will happen. This is being our second episode of the week. We wanted to keep this a little bit shorter. So, Chuck, let me ask you before we get out of here. Favorite under-the-radar free agent signing, or you and I were talking right before, and you had mentioned you were coining this expression, teams that were asleep at the wheel. So one transaction or maybe non-transaction that for the first 48 hours of free agency really stood out to you.
I'm gonna turn on some old junk that I've talked, some old smack that I've talked against the one and only Tobias Harris. He is the recipient of 2 years, $31 million from the San Antonio Spurs, and I think it's such a good signing for them. He's kind of giving them what Harrison Barnes couldn't really at this point. I think having another adult in the room. Does he have any like serious playoff run experience, or is he kind of just hung around?
No, he's been. I mean, he made the second round with Philly a few times. He was on the team where the Kawhi hit the shot in Toronto. He's been around. He's made the second round, but
he's hung around. Nothing deep.
But he had a great playoffs this most recent postseason.
Right.
So he was not the problem with Detroit losing in that series.
No. So, yeah, just adding a little more playmaking optionality, shooting, just a little toughness, a little veteran toughness, but can actually stay on the court. I like it from San Antonio, and then even more underrated, their new assistant coach,
Billy Donovan.
Look at that.
Donovan.
Yeah.
What a come up to go from the nightmare in Chicago to Victor Wembanyama and Dylan Harper.
Yeah. For a coach in Mitch Johnson that looked a little deer in the headlights at some points, just having some veteran presence right on the sidelines, I think that's also great. So they kind of saw that, what everyone in the world saw, that it was just a little too much too soon. And let's get some adults in the room, and everyone's just going to come back hardened by this experience. And I think they're going to be ready to hang around. The other thing with Jaylen Brown is like, God, dude, like they got, well, this is the same thing that happened. Like the Spurs this year, they got outclassed and just out veteraned and maneuvered by the Knicks. In this kind of similar way that the Celtics in 2022 got just outgamed and mind-tricked by the Draymond, Steph veterans that just knew how to get it done, knew how to win clutch games. So it's like Jaylen learned how to do all this. Like he learned how to win at the top level. And then you give him away for Paul George, who hits the side of the backboard and just blows 3 1s. So... yeah, brutal.
What a way to finish the pod. I wanted to quickly shout out Marcus Smart to Houston. I think it's a really good signing.
Nice. I like that as well.
Basically putting Marcus Smart in the Josh Okogie role. Marcus Smart obviously super familiar with the Ime Udoka system from his time in Boston. I thought Marcus Smart played really well in the playoffs for the Lakers.
Yep.
That was a signing that was pretty widely criticized and played well. Started for them, was again one of their maybe even their second best player in that first round series. So I think really good business by Houston. But yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll do teams that are asleep at the wheel. Hopefully some of these teams that we were going to talk about may have actually woken up and done something. Again,
LeBron might have a home.
That's
crazy that we're like the last time LeBron was choosing a team, like the world stopped. Yeah. And now LeBron's
the world will stop again when he chooses a team. LeBron's still
no
in
matter
business.
where he goes, it's going to be epic. Because if it's Cleveland or the Heat as returns, that's going to be epic. If it's the Golden Age Warriors, that's going to be epic. So, yeah, man, staying tuned.
Okay, well, thank you as always for listening, Chuck. We'll be back next week. Have a great holiday weekend, and I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
You too. Let's watch some soccer and follow us on all socials. CJ Hoops Pod. Later.